Hi, welcome back. Really excited for today. You know, put out one a week of these, and sometimes I'm going, what really needs to be talked about? Sometimes there are things I want to talk about, but it might not be the best thing to talk about. So again, credit to my Facebook group. Great conversations, great questions in there. Let me set the context for this and we'll get going. I was in Florida. I was in Chicago this past week. Next one's going to be in Florida with a group of people. Dan Tiemann, Colin, Andrew Vertson, and some other people. And we got together to talk about the flow of a business, marketing, sales, retention. It was great to be in a room of people at a marketing event where marketing was the smallest part of the conversation. I got to be brutally honest. And so day one was all of us presenting in a great flow of information from marketing to patient experience to sales to scaling, right? And it all really blended together. Day two was a hot seat day when a couple practice owners sat down and told us where they wanted to get to. We sat with their current state, looked where they wanted to get, and then put together a 90-day plan for them. The beauty of this, I'm going to be honest, a little tangential, is Dan, the marketing guy, stood up and said, hey, Dan with Stealth Media, Dan and Colin both, who have Stealth Media. Dan stood up during both of them and said, yep, there's no marketing problem here. You don't need to be investing in more marketing. You got to keep doing your marketing, but no new marketing, no increased marketing budget. And we reverse engineered for these guys in order to get to where they wanted at the end of 2022 and even keep moving towards their bigger vision, right? Maybe even their exit, what they needed to start doing over the next 90 days. And it was about 3 hours worth, if not 4 hours for two people. What it really came down to, and yes, I have my biases and my beliefs, yet I'll sit down and break down the 4 hours of video with anybody. It really came back to the basics. It really did, my friends. Some people were bigger than others. Some people had more staff than others. It came back to the basics. And so what I want to go back through with you is these basics and what I call the 3 steps to patient and business success. And what I realized is so I put a post in my Facebook group, now to set context for this talk. And I said, look, it really comes down to these 3 things. And someone asked for a video or YouTube or a post on what I'm going to talk about today, which are these 3 steps. And I'm going to quickly outline the 3 steps. And then we're going to start with number 1, the patient life cycle. And someone asked me for it. And I went back through 87 YouTubes and there was like no patient life cycle YouTube. So I said, let's go back to the basics. Just like professional golfers, professional baseball players, whoever it is, they do the basics. Now, we never see them doing the basics because no one gets excited about them doing the basics, right? We always want to see the competition. We want to see the highest level. No one shows them the golfers at 5:30 out on the driving range, out on the putting green, right? But yet the most successful people do the basics properly. 3 steps to patient and business success. So I'm going to share my screen because I think we need the visual, right? We need the visual. All right. 3 steps to patient and business success, right? Now, the premise for this and where we really got to start from is your business is an ecosystem. That means every step impacts every step. And the further upstream you go, the bigger impact downstream. It becomes this virtual cycle. But when we first look at the business, we got to look at it as a straight line. And your business is an ecosystem. So when we're looking at this, we got to realize each step impacts the next step. And actually, the biggest impact is furthest upstream. And again, this came out immensely during the hot seats, talking to clinic owners, some that were, some that want to get to 7, 8, 9 figures, one that was very close to 7 figures, and one that's not as close, but damn close to 7 figures, but doesn't want to get to 8, 9, 9. He wants an exit. And we talked about these. It all came back to this as I broke it down. We put all these numbers up, and here was the end solution for everybody. Nobody needed new marketing. Nobody needed new services. Nobody needed new hires. Nobody needed new processes. Nobody needed new products. They needed to refocus back on the basics. And when you start to look back at the basics and why is your arrival rate like this? Why is your cancel rate like this? Why is your drop off rate like this? Why is your conversion rate like this? It comes down to not understanding and fully embracing the importance of your business as an ecosystem. Let's face it, everybody watching this, your focus is on the fucking providers and further down even into the plan of care. I'm like, you're wasting your time, money, and energy if you don't work upstream first. Initial phone call, what I call pre-arrival, and then connect the pre-arrival to arrival. If you don't do that work, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the equipment, doesn't matter the treatments, doesn't matter the services. We got to go upstream and start the process of this patient success way earlier so you can deliver all that shit, get patient success, and then reap the benefits of patient success, which is business success. Your business is an ecosystem, my friends, and patient success leads to business success, okay? And if patient success leads to business success, this is the other thing that got lost really quick. Oh yeah, patience, patience, patience. And then we got in the weeds about the business side, and I kept coming back out. What's best for the patient? Right? What do we have to do here for the patient? You're missing a step. And that's the thing. Everybody would want to jump forward, jump forward, jump forward. And I'm like, no, back it up. What do we have to do at this step to create patient success? Right? Because we get to, oh, what's your cost per visit? Right? And I'm like, it doesn't matter what your revenue per visit is and things like that. We don't know how we're getting there, right? Which goes all the way back upstream to the marketing. And by the way, no one had a leads problem thanks to stealth media. Nobody had a leads problem in the room, right? So everybody immediately went from not a leads problem to all the way into a plan of care. And I was like, yo, time out, right? How are we going to create patient success? How we create patient success during the evaluation, during a plan of care is set. The foundation is set and leveraged during the pre-arrival phase. So if patient success leads to business success, then we got to look at patient success, right? And patient success is a team effort. And that was the other takeaway. Spending less time, money, and energy on the non-providers. By the way, I'm going to say this out loud. You have a $15 employee and you have the equivalent of whatever, your providers are making, a $55, $65, $75, $85 an hour employee. Who's going to benefit most from a $1,000 bonus at the end of the month? Who are you going to be able to leverage and find those people during the hiring process who are driven by that? A $1,000 bonus to a $15 an hour employee versus an $85 employee. I'm not saying you don't bonus everybody, but if you only got so much money to go around, my friends, and one of them's already making 85K, we got to understand the team approach here, right? Bonus the left tackle. I use that football analogy. I'm not going to go into that. Bonus your freaking left tackle like you do your damn quarterbacks and wide receivers. Because without the left tackle, there is no time to throw, right? It's a team effort here. Yeah, I'm getting passionate already. Here it is. So this is the structure for what I'm going to talk about. This is 20 plus years of work. I stood in front of the group on Friday and I paused and went, holy shit, this is 20 years of worth of work right here, reverse engineered. I looked at my happy paying customers, right? And I reverse engineered what it was. And this is what it came down to. They were put into systems, they were put into a process to create an experience, an emotional experience for them, right? And then the only way I can understand the experience I want to create and the connectedness, we're back to the ecosystem of the business, is understand their life cycle. So now let's go forward. Step number one of the 3-step process, of which I will go over right now, is understanding your patient's journey. Don't worry about the other ones. Don't worry about the systems. Don't worry about their experience. Everybody tells me they're working on their patient experience. I'm like, cool, what are you doing? And they're telling me these little things all over. And I'm like, how does that connect to the rest of their journey and creating success for them? And this is what I get. And that is because you and they don't understand the life cycle that this person is moving through in your business, right? This is your patient's life cycle within your business. There's one thing missing here is marketing. When I created this, I didn't think about the marketing component, but marketing is a separate circle. Let me see if I can find this right here. No. Marketing is a separate circle flowing around and around and around, that feeds into that golden moment spot in the upper left. The golden moment is when they initially contact you. Phone call, walk in, you get notified of a Facebook ad, an email, a web form. That's the golden moment. Well, all your marketing feeds into the golden moment. But those are two different huge processes that feed into each other. So both of them are always moving and they connect at that golden moment. Marketing connects at that golden moment, okay? So you can see this is roughly yours. And the reason for the coloring, I'll get in a second, but this is basically yours. And look at these steps. These are the high level steps because you're like, there's stuff missing. I'm like, right. But this is generally someone moving through. And this is the thing you got to do today, tonight, tomorrow, to create this 3-step process for your success and understand where, remember where this started, where the work needs to be done. Do I need to improve my first call sales process? Do I need to improve the content and the work I'm doing before they arrive to build more trust? Do I need to change the arrival process? Do I need to change the evaluation process? Do I need to do more training on the selling plans of care? You cannot know that until you understand your life cycle. Now, here's a more detailed one. If we look at the bottom there, that green arrow, you see marketing inflow, right? That marketing inflow feeds into that golden moment. And then we spin through the green, and all that green work is pre-arrival, my friends. And if you'll notice, the green far exceeds any other color, as did the red. As did the red. So I just want you to keep this stuff in mind, man. This is that team effort. There's so much work to be done by the non-providers just to get the person ready to arrive, pay, and stay. And if we don't understand this life cycle, we can't create the systems to create the experience we want to get patient success, which will lead us to business success. Hopefully this is all starting to come together better. Here is the definition of the patient life cycle. It is every single touch point and interaction, your potentials, right? Because remember that green, that red, they're not a paying customer yet. They're not a client. They're not a patient. They're not anything. They're just a potential right now. And by the way, that's another mindset we got to get everybody out. Hey, how many people did you schedule this week? 60. Awesome. You rock. I'm like, good. How many arrived? How many didn't arrive? Why not? How many follow-ups do we have? And by the way, if you have discovery visits in eval, how many are scheduled for discoveries, for evals? Okay. Again, how many arrived for discovery visits for evals? These are the touch points in the interactions, right? And then we look at those metrics of success, like I'm saying, right, that really identify these steps on the journey. Okay. Every single touch point and interaction your potential patients have with your practice. By the way, this is interesting. Your patient life cycle is not always under your control, right? You don't know how people are going to come to you, right? You don't know how many people I've emailed, right? So we've got to understand who our ideal client is, right? And what typically journey are they going to go through in our practice, right? Are they going to call us? Are they going to email us, right? This is something, and bear with me on this because I know everybody's thinking, what's he talking about? But the patient life cycle is not under our control. It's the journey they're moving through. And what we have to understand is this journey and how we're going to escort them along, how we're going to come alongside of them and move them through this journey to patient success. Here we go. And this is based on this one, 4 phases, right? And the one phase that's missing, phase 1, is marketing. But then you see the red phase, the orange phase, and the gray phase are the last 3. So that's what I want you to look at next to understand best. So think of this one. I'm going to go into the 4 phases of your client patient's life cycle. Here's the beauty of doing this. This is why you must do this before you create the systems and the processes. And by the way, even hire the people. When you understand how important sales is in phase 2, the red part of your patient's life cycle, and you hired a bunch of customer service, caring, kind people, you will fail at the conversion rate and getting people to arrive. So this is really important. Every phase has an owner, a goal, the metrics of success, and the systems that need to go into it. By the way, right, the systems that go into it are what we do, but you see, step 3, step 4. It's bottom of the list. That creates the experience we want. But first, we got to map this thing out, figure out who is the owner, what are the goals of those phases, and what are the metrics of success before we can build the systems to create the experience, to create patient success. I'm going to say this over and over and over. Phase one, the attraction to initial contact. This is your marketing, right? What I love about this is people, this phase, right? And you guys hear me talking about the speed of a relationship. Phase one can be 5 minutes. I just saw your Facebook ad. I read it. I clicked. It can be a year. Someone came into your ecosystem, downloaded a book, a free ebook on low back pain, and they've been getting your emails weekly for a full year. By the way, I know more than one clinic. These aren't made up. None of these are made up scenarios. They then call your clinic 18 months. I've talked to someone. He tracked back. The person came into their ecosystem 18 months ago, opened all the emails, and then calls them and says, yeah, I need some physical therapy. How'd you find out about us? Oh, I went to your website. And I'm like, wow, right? So to have that capability to understand this, to measure that stuff is really, really important. So this attraction phase, this marketing phase can last forever or it can last 5 minutes. You must understand that as people move into this phase. This is the selling. This is the red. This is phase two, what I call pre-arrival. This is what I've been beating into everybody's heads for about 10, 15 years now. This is initial contact to arrival, the most important, single most important phase, right, of your patient's life cycle. Pre-arrival, owned by, I mean, you guys pretty much figure out who owns this, the marketing team. What are the metrics of success? Leads, right? And then the systems, all those systems. Okay. And then we have this. Who owns this? The front desk person responsible for selling. That's who owns this. Not the customer service, not the face of the company, not the admin billing team, the person responsible for answering new leads, new lead calls, getting them on the schedule and getting them to arrive and pay, and the metrics that have to do with that. So what's that? Lead conversion, lead to arrival, not lead to schedule, lead to arrival. That's it, man. That's it for the selling person. That's who owns it. And then the system's built out, right? And I'm talking about like a welcome call, a welcome video. How do we script the first phone call? All those are your systems, right? Where does the insurance information go? How do they get their costs? We could sit here and talk for 4 hours on all the systems you must consider during this phase two or pre-arrival phase of your patient's life cycle. This is where you all are spending all your time, money, and energy. And I'm telling you, you've leveraged it and you've over leveraged it and you burned time, money, or energy. Leave this phase alone. Leave it alone. Phase three is the evaluation through the course of care. Actually, I lied. I just lied. I was thinking of post evaluation. I wasn't looking at evaluation. You haven't over leveraged this. You've over leveraged the wrong part of it. The evaluation is the single most important step in this phase, and nobody pays attention to it. There you go. They're leveraging everything after that, right? You go back, did you schedule them out? I'm like, that shouldn't even be a question. You should have that data in front of you every day. What was the conversation you had? And I'm like, nope, that needs to be scripted out, my friends. Selling a plan of care comes during the evaluation, the single most important step during phase three. This is owned by the providers, owned by the providers. You may have PT assistants, it's owned by the providers, and then, right, then people are running support in there. So it's funny, phase two, right, pre-arrival is owned by the front desk. They may ask the providers to come in, make a phone call, send an email, talk to someone. The front desk still owns that. As soon as they arrive, ownership shifts. So drop-offs is owned by your providers, not your front desk. Cancels is a team effort, right? Cancels happen everywhere and anywhere through this life cycle. It's a team effort. Nobody owns it, right? It depends when they cancel. So people canceling through a course of care more frequently, I'm going to lean on the providers, not the front desk. This is all the way through the evaluation. So, you know, that pre-arrival phase, the red, phase two, is one selling cycle. Watch what we're going to do here. This phase three, the evaluation is selling cycle number two, that 30, 45, 60 minutes is selling cycle number two. And then the course of care is selling cycle number three. So again, when I say you've over leveraged your providers in this phase, I'm going to guarantee the bulk of you do not have a script for the evaluation, any process for scheduling a plan of care. And even if you do, I'm going to state that you don't follow up and you don't manage it and you don't train it and you don't hold people responsible for it. And then every return visit should be, the beginning and the end should be scripted through a course of care, because the goal of the evaluation is to get someone scheduled out for their plan of care. Their plan of care can be 1 visit. It could be 100 visits. I don't fucking care, because you're the expert. You're the one who knows the person across from you. You're the one managing them to get them back to where they want to be. And then how do you get them to complete that course of care, sales cycle number 3? That's what is not being managed properly. And by the way, this right here, for those of you who are still here, was the biggest leak point. Phase 2, selling, initial contact, was number 1A, and this was number 1B. 1A feeds into 1B. The better your initial contact sales system is, and the better you share information between that and your providers, the less work your provider has to do to sell a plan of care. You see where we're going here? So if your providers complain about selling a plan of care, let's go upstream and get them better information. Say, cool. And I right, if you guys hear me talking about the rules of engagement and how it creates your culture, that's what I'm talking about. All the systems and all the scripts that go into first contact all the way through a completed course of care is the rules of engagement that establish the culture about how we manage a person here at ABC Physio from first contact to a completed course of care. By the way, you see that says, oh, it doesn't say completed. It will on the next one. There is no discharge, okay? So again, the issues that I saw the most with the 2 clinic owners after 4 hours was, is the initial contact in place in the sales process? And it was shaky at best. And then this, right? And then who's doing all the training and everything? Sorry, the clinic owners and other PTs. I'm like, I wouldn't leave the training up to them. I would leave the follow-up. I would lead the management. I would leave the weekly meetings and the review of all that to my clinical manager. I wouldn't leave the training up to them. So again, right, get clarity around what I'm saying here. This shit is too important. It's way too important. And by the way, it was the A1 limiting factor of both clinics on reaching, right, that next step, and was always going to hold them back. And what were they going to do? As God is my witness, they were going to ramp up their marketing, or they were going to add another service. We're not making enough money in this one service. I'm like, but your conversion rate's only 40% from the first phone call to here. And then from there, you're only converting another 50%. We're down to 20% of all people who call here even arrive or agree to a plan of care. And you want to add a service? Mm-hmm. Phase 3, post-course of care. We never discharge a happy paying customer, meaning, right, they stay in the nurture system. We have other services to offer them. We do whatever, but we don't discharge people. Because by the way, if you tell your providers you discharge people, then you're going to lose them. Your providers aren't going to buy in to the follow-up and the work they need to do. Right? And they need to be in an email nurture system. They need to be contacted via text, via phone, periodically by the provider. Okay? And re-engagement can be them telling friends, telling their doctor, posting reviews, whatever it takes, right? So when you think of that circle and that life cycle, it's not that same patient coming back and back. It's this patient becoming an advocate, right? So let's look at this one more time. 4 phases of your patient's life cycle. You cannot create an experience and you cannot move people through to patient success consistently without understanding this first. This is phase 2 through phase 4. Phase 1 is spinning around the outside of this. Phase 2 is all the red, pre-arrival. Phase 3 is the orange, the evaluation through the course of care. And the gray is post-course of care. And by the way, the gray could be your after program, because the course of care ends, right? And I'm working on this with a handful of clients, right? How do we move people out of the licensed care, right, into other things that can keep them out of the licensed care? This is your patient life cycle, right? We talked about the owners. We talked about the objectives at each, right? It's arrived, not scheduled. It's agreed upon, then scheduled out plan of care. And then it's re-engagement. And then the systems, right? We're not going to get into that today. That's for the next call, because we're going to end this right here. The single most important thing you must do throughout this life cycle is manage and set expectations, build trust, and decrease fear, doubt, and uncertainty. You're all immediately going back to the evaluation, what the provider does. And I'm like, your front desk during phase 2 and your marketing have more impact on this than your provider. The provider just needs to continue the conversation. How you like that? The provider just needs to deliver on expectations that were set. I do secret callers. I listen to calls every day, recorded calls. The number of people that are scheduled for physical therapy at 10:30 with a physical therapist is pure insanity. None of this stuff has happened. And then they walk in the room and the provider has to go from 0 to 100 in building trust and alliance, in establishing themselves as an expert, in getting them to buy in to the fact they're an expert and the evaluation, and then getting them to agree to a plan of care. I'm like, you're setting them up for failure. You're handing them a gun, right, with all but one chamber loaded and say, we're going to play Russian roulette. Good luck. And I'm saying, the more you do of this upstream, you're taking bullets out of the gun every time. And eventually, I would argue you're playing Russian roulette with no bullets in the chamber, because you've set them up for success. And now they just got to deliver. When what? When your marketing is right on, right? When your marketing is doing better, when you're taking the things you're learning during this patient life cycle and you're feeding it back into the marketing. And where's that come from? Mostly your front desk, my friends, not the providers. It's the things they're hearing on the phone that then we look for completed plans of care. What are their lead sources? What are they saying? Right? So 3 steps to patient and business success. Step number 1, understand your patient life cycle. Otherwise, you're spinning your wheels and you're doing a lot of things that you're going to have to go back and change because, for better or for worse, right, you don't understand it. And I don't care how smart we all are. If I walk into a clinic and they're like, help me with my systems, I'm like, cool. What systems? I need help with my cancels. I'm like, cool. Let's go look at your marketing. They're like, what? I got a problem with people canceling with providers. Yeah, I know. We're going to fix it up here. Let's look at your marketing. Let's look at your sales process. Let's look at the pre-arrival. And then magically, the cancel rate goes dip, dip, dip. And we haven't even talked to the providers yet. I got more examples of that than anything else, my friends. I've got people, I've trained their front desk for 4 months. Cancel rate goes down by half. Anybody want that? Right? So step number 1 in the 3-step patient and business success process, map out your patient life cycle. It's as simple as that. Just put it on a piece of paper, straight line. I don't care. Who owns it? What are the steps, right? Because then I gave you the template. I'm not going to talk about marketing right now, but once you do like pre-arrival phase, then start looking, what do we do? Right. And for you, by the way, you got to look at all your different lead sources. It's going to be a little different at the beginning, and then they're all going to converge. What do we do here? We answer, right? We check our email. We call back within 15 minutes. What happens if they answer? What happens if they don't? Right? That's the breakdown, but really just go Facebook lead, right? Where do all our leads come from? Cool. And then how do they come in? Email, phone call. Just do it like that. Then what happens next? We call them. What happens next? They either schedule or we get them in a nurture system. I'm like, that's cool for now, right? Schedule them, discovery visit, whatever. Stay higher level, then go back through, because then you're going to break it down and put those systems in and do what I'm going to cover next week, right? Which is create the patient experience. That's step 2, the 3-step patient to business success. Cheers all. Thank you very much. And thank you, John, for this question.